I call this meeting of Township High School District 211 Board of Education to order. May we have a roll call, please?
Ms. Cavill.
Here.
Mr. Kramer.
Here.
Mr. Dombrowski.
Here.
Mrs. Klimkowitz.
Here.
Mr. Rosenblum.
Here.
Mr. Young.
Here.
Mr. Lefevre.
Here. Would everyone please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Our first item of business tonight is recognitions. For that, I'd like to turn it over to our superintendent, Dr. Small.
Thank you. It is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Eric Winkowski, our Director of Athletics and Activities, for our first round of recognitions this year for our students.
All right. We're finally back. Thank you, Dr. Small and Board of Education, for taking the time tonight to honor some really talented students this evening that were due to be recognized last spring. These students represent only a portion of the students that were to be recognized for their accomplishments in the State Business Professionals of America competition. Students, as your sponsor introduces you, please feel free to please stand and be recognized along with any of your family members. Additionally, please stand and be recognized. Family members, stand and be recognized. I'm out of practice here. It's been a while. Also here to acknowledge the students' accomplishments is Conant High School Principal Julie Novak, and we'll get started. Patty Ertl. Patty Ertl is currently an instructional coach and business education department chair at Conant High School, along with being the district business chair. Patty has the unique distinction, as I've said before, of teaching at every one of our District 211 schools at one point in her career, along with graduating from one, because Patty is a proud graduate of Township High School District 211. Patty.
Hello. Thank you for inviting us here tonight. Thank you to the Board of Education, Dr. Samal, Mr. Winkowski, Mrs. Novak, my assistant advisors, Mrs. Hilgendorf and Matt Marks, and of course to our parents who are so important to everything that we do. This past March, 70 of our Conant High School BPA members qualified to compete at our state leadership conference in one or more of the following categories: finance, business administration, management information systems, digital design and communication, management, marketing, and communication. Out of 907 competitors at the state competition from all across the state of Illinois, Conant walked away with 12 first place finishes, 4 second place finishes, and 7 third place finishes. I believe it was our best year ever. Many of those students qualified for national competition that was ultimately canceled. Tonight we will recognize 3 of our students who are here with us who were among our first place finishers. Parents, please make sure you stand when I call the students. First we have Parth Shaw. He is one of our first place finishers in database applications. Congratulations, Parth. Next we have Medika Arithra. Okay, with her mom, she is half of our first place small business management team. Congratulations. And the other half of our first place small business management team is Rhea Jane, here with her mom. Congratulations. And again, thank you for having us back, and hopefully we will be back here in the spring. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Congratulations to the students we recognize this evening. We're now going to begin the business portion of our meeting. If you'd like, you're welcome to leave at this point. If you wish to remain for the rest of the meeting, I'd ask that you exit the auditorium and then proceed over to the media center to watch the meeting via Zoom. Due to the regulations on the number of people in one area, we need to allow those who are making public comments the opportunity to enter the auditorium. Thank you. Enjoy the remainder of your evening. Do we have to wait for anyone to come in? We do.
We do.
Yeah, okay. Welcome, everybody. The next item of business tonight is public comments. According to Phase 4 guidelines issued by the state of Illinois, no more than 50 individuals may be gathered together in a specific location at one time. The Board of Education meeting is being held this evening in the auditorium at Hoffman Estates High School with a maximum of 50 individuals. The board meeting also will be simulcast in classrooms near the auditorium to accommodate any additional guests beyond the auditorium capacity. The Board of Education meeting is also being conducted via an electronic video conferencing application known as Zoom. Tonight, public comments will be in person and via Zoom. Individuals who wanted to address the board via in-person or Zoom were asked to sign up today between the hours of 4:30 p.m. and 6:30 p.m. Individuals were asked to indicate if they wanted to address the Board of Education in person or via Zoom. If more than 20 people completed the link to address the board, a random system was used to select and order 30 names. Since public comment is to be heard for a maximum of 1 hour, not all 30 people may have a chance to address the board. A list of individuals who will address the board and the order of the individuals addressing the board was posted on the Zoom meeting screen at 7:15 p.m. Each person who addresses the board will have a maximum of 5 minutes to speak. You will be told when you have 1 minute remaining, though you may not hear that if you are speaking via Zoom. Public comment will be heard for a maximum of 1 hour. I will call each person's name when it is their time to address the board. If you are in person, please come to the podium and state your name for the record. Though not required, you may state if you are a resident of the district. If you are addressing the board via Zoom, your microphone will be turned on after I call your name. Again, please state your name for the record, and if you wish, indicate if you are a resident of the district. When you are finished, your microphone will be turned off. Speakers should please keep their masks on when addressing the board at the podium. Any individual's unused time or place in order may not be deferred to another individual. That said, our first person is Karen Powers.
Good evening. My name is Karen Powers, and I am a parent of a Hoffman Estates High School sophomore. Speaking to you tonight is completely out of my comfort zone, but I can no longer sit and watch what is happening in our community. Our children should be in school. They need to be interacting with peers and teachers. They need to wake up in the morning with a purpose and not to barely roll out of bed and stare at their iPads for 5 hours. My child's learning experience has gone from 94-minute learning blocks to 60-minute Zooms. The quality of remote learning is not comparable to in-person. Dr. Small, can you please provide me with what the fall participation rates have been? I have had conversations via email and via phone with the superintendent and a few of the board members. What some of the parents listening tonight may not realize is the board members on July 16th voted unanimously to give the superintendent the sole power to switch between hybrid and remote at their discretion. It would take 4 BOE members to override this authority. How any of you sitting here tonight can grant that kind of power to a superintendent is concerning, and it should be a wake-up call to the voters within our district. Everyone is so wrapped up in the presidential election, they fail to see that the individuals elected at state and local levels are far more powerful. To quote Governor Pritzker from an article Mr. Dombrowski posted on his BOE Facebook page, the governor has left decisions on in-person instruction up to locally elected school board members. Well, what are we waiting for? November 4th? A vaccine? A bailout? 0 cases? The superintendent blames the guidelines from IDPH and ISBE for the abrupt shift from hybrid to remote. Yet I have witnessed schools across the nation and in our state open safely. This leads me to call out what is exactly going on, and it is grossly political, and the cost is our children. There is no transparency from the district. All I know is 2/3 of the parents and students surveyed were in favor of in-person learning. I have no idea where the teachers stand on reopening, and I would love to know the stance of the teachers union as well. I also think the district teachers should be included in a next survey. I am repeatedly told this is about keeping our children safe. I ask, from what? A virus that has shown to have little or no effect on their age group. A virus that affects the elderly and those with underlying health problems. The AAP and CDC have both stated the importance of our children returning to in-person learning. Take off your blinders and start looking at what the consequences will be if we continue to keep our children at home. The focus should be on their mental health, not just COVID. I am sick and tired of virtual this and virtual that. The kids are too. They need human interaction. What about depression, anxiety? Both lead to drug use and suicide. Has that been given any thought? I recently saw a report from the DuPage County coroner stating they had a 52% increase in overdose deaths in the first 6 months of 2020 compared to the same time frame in 2019. That is alarming. In closing, I want to know what the end game is. The hybrid model gave parents a choice. You, Dr. Small, and the BOE members have taken that from us. Teachers have been deemed essential workers. They need to return to the classroom.
You have 1 more minute.
Filled with students that are paid to teach. I have friends and family members that are essential workers and haven't had a day off or batted an eye throughout the last 6 months. They woke up, went to work so all of you could have food, protection, and health care if needed. It is time for the teachers to participate at the same level. Thank you.
Lisa Reiswig, you're next, please.
I'm Lisa Reiswig. I have 3 children, and my oldest is a sophomore at Palatine High School. On March 13th, we asked our children to take one for the team. Take an extra long spring break so we could keep hospitals from overcrowding, flattening the curve. Our kids listened. As parents, we kept them away from their friends because we were told that was best. 2 weeks turned into 3. 3 weeks turned into a month. 1 month suddenly turned into no prom, no graduation, no spring sports season. Our kids did what we asked. The curve was flattened. Still, we told them, still no sports, no summer school, no social gatherings of any kind. 2 weeks to flatten the curve has become remote learning with no definite end. Work on a screen for 6 hours a day from your room. Complete a gym class from your screen in your room. Do 2 hours of homework on your screen in your room. Solitary confinement. It's what we give prisoners. Isolation. Friends, I beg of you, please stop. Most research links social isolation and loneliness to both poor mental and physical health. There is a huge concern about the risk of increased suicides during all of this reaction to COVID. According to the CDC, suicide is the second leading cause of death among teens ages 12 to 18. According to the American Medical Association, in August, suicides in Cook County, Illinois alone were up 13% compared to the same period last year. The National Alliance on Mental Illness Helpline has seen a 65% increase in calls since March. Robert Redfield of the CDC in July said there has been another loss that we've seen, particularly in high school. We are seeing, sadly, far greater suicides now more than we are seeing deaths from COVID. In a time of their life when even the most mentally healthy children struggle, Our school boards have now wrapped depression up with a pretty bow, handed it to each student as they walked out of their classrooms on March 13th, 2019, and they haven't looked back. I've personally watched what teenage suicide can do to the remaining family members. The destruction never goes away. Please start thinking of the other half of our health, our mental health. What are we doing to our kids? Each and every one of you had a choice how to live out your high school careers. If you wanted to go to prom, you went. If you wanted to play chess, you played. If you wanted to try out for football, you did. Now, you are taking the liberty to choose for a whole new generation what they will do. I implore you, end the isolation. Take care of our precious youth. Let them choose their paths for their high school years on their own. Don't let them disappear into isolation. Don't let one suicide rest on your shoulders due to your decisions or lack thereof right now. Get them back in the classroom. Thank you.
Stacy Gale.
Hello. Can you hear me? My name's Stacy Gale, and I'm a resident of Hoffman Estates, with a student who's a junior at Schaumburg High School. I am pleading with you to take immediate steps to get children back in school for in-person learning. The negative impacts of government-mandated isolation of children is a cruel punishment. Did you know the DuPage County coroner recently released the following information regarding drug overdoses? In 2020, the number of overdoses have increased by 52% over the same period in 2019. These overdose deaths are particularly difficult because they represent the premature end of life, made worse by the fact that the majority of fatal overdoses occur in the young. They leave family, friends, and community with grief and the inevitable question of what if? Did you know, for those under the age of 60, suicides quadrupled in 2020 compared to 2019 in the communities served by District 211? Year to date, there have been 12 deaths in our communities due to COVID-19, compared to 16 suicides. The number of deaths in our communities due to suicides is 125% that of COVID-19 for those under the age of 60. Is District 211 considering all health metrics pertinent to the children's health while developing your plan and timeline for students returning to school? During the past two board meetings, I have heard speaker after speaker talk of the racial and socioeconomic disparity in 211. The board has discussed the issue at length, created special committees, and is proposing a special meeting to address it. This all seems like a PR stunt to me. Remote learning increases the equity gap. The longer the remote learning, the larger the gap. How can you spend a significant amount of time in two board meetings talking about the importance of shrinking the gap and then make the decision to continue with remote learning? Your actions do not support your public statements. How many students have engaged at all this year? How many engaged less than 50% of the time? What is the demographic breakdown of those students? How many students dropped out in the spring? What was the dropout rate in 2018 compared to 2019? Which students are most likely to drop out? Please consider the addition of a board meeting for October 29th in an effort to adhere to the ISB guidelines of increasing the frequency and consistency of communication with parents. Please declare teachers in D211 as essential workers. Thank you.
Kristen Steele.
Hi, I'm Kristen Steele. I have 2 students in District 54 and 1 here at Hoffman Estates High School as a junior. Thank you for your 5 minutes this evening. And District 211 School Board, Dr. Small and School Administration. On behalf of the overwhelming majority of parents and teachers in this district, we are here literally fighting for something we should not ever have to fight for. And how ironic it is on Constitution Day. We as parents are fighting for our children's emotional and mental well-being and their education. Since March, it has been so subpar that it is mind-boggling to me. We were set for our choice of in-school face-to-face learning, albeit with a bit of a different schedule, and it looked a bit different, but it was something that was not all remote, and we had a choice. It was a week prior to the Thursday the kids were to start. My junior received an email saying that HEHS was going to be all remote. I never received such communication, so I was unclear as to what was really happening. We were then told technical difficulties with email, more blame on technology. Since all remote learning has commenced, I have seen my children frustrated and at times angered, sad, and simply longing to be in school. My children are very involved and very happy human beings. They are not that way anymore. Fear is still driving too many decisions that are being made. While it was understandable months ago with great uncertainties surrounded by COVID-19, the facts are now much more clear. For folks without serious health issues, it is extremely rare to need to be hospitalized. Positivity numbers do not matter. Let me say that again. It doesn't matter. And this is the reality which should be driving the resumption of safe in-person instruction. We in our house are fortunate that both my husband and I are home and we have good jobs, but it is hard, and we are both literally working more than 12 hours a day. We have to in order to direct time to facilitate our learning for our children. I'm not complaining. My heart is grateful for what we have, but it is hard, and it begs the question, how are other parents coping? Not well at all. I presume this based on what I have seen and heard. So here we are a month in, and it has not gotten any better. The communication stinks. The responses and conversations I have had with board members and superintendents are less than positive. It's all smoke and mirrors. I was kind of surprised that Dr. Small put time on her calendar for me, and we did talk. I do know why, though. Remote learning was her decision. I know that this school board sitting before us today voted in favor of granting Dr. Small unilateral decision-making capability to make such a decision. This I find appalling. And it has been expressed by board president that since they hired her, they have to support her decision and allow her to do the job she was hired to do. Your expectation as a board and as administrators is that remote learning will provide the same academic learning that is provided in person and will be proven at the end of the semester with data. When asked what kind of data that is or where that data resides, it is unclear and not tangible right now. I do realize that if you start to compare grades and testing to that prior to remote learning, of course it'll be better. That's because students are sharing info, they're sharing answers, there are open book tests, and all kinds of stuff going on. They are learning and retaining very little. So perhaps your data and test scores will be better, but won't be accurate. I pose this to each and every one of you. Have you asked any parent or student how remote learning is going? Have any of you seen the kids at all during the day? Have any of you touched bases with any of the kids more personally, aside from the one-sided emails we are constantly bombarded with? How is it okay to go to Walmart, Target, the gym, and all normal life places we frequent, but it's not okay to go to school? How is it okay that some empty school buildings are being used to allow kids to complete remote learning, or the Y has a waiting list at $180 a week for kids? How is it okay that other states have schools open full-time? You can't answer there are fewer kids or that we have more kids. The confined space over time is dangerous or any other nonsense that data does not support. It is beyond my rational thinking the amount of hypocrisy and seemingly inept and inadequate leadership that is happening here. It is beyond my brain's grasp that one person would be allowed to take away choice of in-person learning. Again, my goal here is not to present stats and data, but please understand that I'm a well-educated, science-minded person with a master's in science in the healthcare field, and I work hard to keep abreast of all current information.
Your time has ended.
Thank you.
Robbie Volkemer.
Good evening. I have students at Schaumburg High School. I just wanted to open with a personal thank you to board members Pete Dombrowski and Mark Kramer, along with District 211 Superintendent Dr. Small and new Schaumburg High School Principal Harlan. As you probably don't recall, I gave a public comment at a board meeting way back in January of this year, outlining and giving several examples of why I felt District 211 was veering away from focusing on academics. At this time, I asked the board to respond and provide comments or feedback. I even sent an email shortly after, along with a copy of my presentation. The aforementioned individuals were the only ones that provided any feedback or contacted me to inquire further. I'm still hoping that the issues I addressed back in January will be taken seriously and considered. I am happy to report that some already have, like notifying sophomores about the PSAT M-Squat and giving them an option to take this test as practice during their sophomore year. Although at Schaumburg High School they were only given about a 3-day notice before registration closed, it's better than nothing. As also previously mentioned back in January, my daughter, who is currently a sophomore at Arizona State University, lost out on $50,000 because she was only a commended National Merit semifinalist. However, we just found out last week that my second child, who took the PSAT M-Squat her sophomore year, and then again her junior year, is the only National Merit semifinalist at Schaumburg High School, ending a 2-year drought at the school. Her score went up 100 points from sophomore to junior year. I would love to see study sessions or help offered for this test similar to the SAT. Please feel free to reach out to me if you would like me to forward another copy of my January presentation. Another thing I'd like to talk about is the need to get back to face-to-face learning. Many children are suffering under the current e-learning method, and there are many unsupervised kids at home with 2-parent working families. There are too many distractions at home, and they can be on multiple electronic devices while on a Zoom call for school. Sitting about 5 hours a day, more for homework time, in front of a screen is not healthy nor beneficial. My own son was laying in bed during class when I confronted him about it, and he said he was in PE class. Yes, you heard that correctly. PE class in bed. My family is fortunate to be able to work from home, so we can monitor our kids and have enforced time periods where they must go outside and get exercise. We also take away all of my son's electronics for 2 hours a day to encourage exercise and non-electronic activities. It's a real battle, one that I fear more than COVID. I just feel if we can open up our casinos, bars, restaurants, etc., that we should be able to find a way to open up our schools for in-person learning. Make it a priority, and please fight for our kids. Perhaps we bring in hazmat suits for those staff that are high risk or uncomfortable with going in person. The district surveyed and asked the District 211 community their thoughts on the issue, and I believe it was clear the majority wanted in-person learning. Let's spend our time brainstorming and researching those schools that have been open for a few weeks and learn from them and get our students back in school. Thank you so much for your time and for listening.
Denise Wilson.
Happy Constitution Day. On this day in 1787, the Constitution was signed. Sad that at this time we are fighting for some of those rights now. I'm here because I have questions and concerns about e-learning. I understand that some may not have the same concerns. Some will even say they're happy with e-learning and afraid for their children to attend school. And for those, I say, good for you. But not everyone is, and that's why we need a better solution. Not just service the few, but provide choices for those that say e-learning is not working. The district may be getting credit for a day of school, but it is not a day of learning for the students. We have put people on the moon, but we cannot put students in a classroom in District 211. What is clear is if putting people on the moon was left to this district, it may not have happened. So what do we have to do to get this done? District 211 has a stated budget of $283.4 million. That's approximately $24,000 per student, just using the number of students off your website. This should be more than enough to cover expenses for opening the school for the approximate 68% of parents that want their children back in school. Start to think differently about how and where classes are held, maybe different grouping of classes or students, so that there's not that much walking between classes. Why is this so important, besides e-learning not working? There is the isolation of children from their peer groups. This puts them at risk of poor adult health. This includes overweight, low IQ, smoking, alcohol misuse, just to list a few. And very sad to say, the amount of children with anxiety, depression, and the number of suicides have increased. Additionally, children with special needs are totally lost with e-learning. Your schools are not providing the contracted service per their IEP. This needs to change, as many other schools and states have done to open up the classrooms. Call those schools and find out how they are successfully accomplishing opening their schools. Costco, Walmart, and many other termed essential businesses remained open and continue to be open, and there are hundreds of people that go in and out daily. Daycares have remained open, and now there's businesses and park districts setting up classrooms for group e-learning, but this district cannot find a way to open schools. Now is the time to start using the right data and make smarter decisions about our children's future. It will be the biggest decision you will make, but the wrong one will have the longest effects on our children and this country. Thank you.
Danielle Branch.
Can you all hear me? The famous Zoom question of the year.
We can hear you.
You can hear me, great. I'm glad to hear that. First, I would like to take a moment to thank all of you for your time. Dr. Small, I do not envy your position. I do not envy it at all. I empathize with you. I can imagine what it is like to be any of you right now. And now you have an enormous weight He does not expect his students and their families to give up their jobs and completely rearrange their lives to accommodate his needs. If you take four things away from my words today, I would like those to be reason, perspective, context, and above all, choice. These words should be the message I convey. While I understand it is your intent to reopen, I am advocating for the future decisions. I am advocating for our students and families who are suffering the consequences of school closure. I ask that you keep the following in mind. I, along with many parents, respect the seriousness of COVID-19. As we enter 6 months of 15 days to slow the spread, my ask is simple. Be reasonable. 2 weeks was reasonable. 2 months was reasonable, although some may argue time. With what we are doing to our community and students, I think any reasonable person can agree we have long left reasonable behind. We have moved to go from slow spread to what? A vaccine that 1/3 of people will refuse to take, that we will not also know long-term effects of, or are we waiting for people to feel safe? The parents and families asking to put student needs first are not anti-maskers. We do respect the novelty of the virus. We believe in science. That being said, because I believe in science and wear a mask, that's intended for the purposes and circumstances to be used when people cannot remain 6 feet apart. I wonder to myself, why are schools the only place that this science can't work? I encourage you to take a look at the Illinois Department of Health website. It provides you with the guidelines for reopening schools. The second one, maintaining a distance of at least 6 feet when feasible. When feasible, it is not a must.
You have 1 minute remaining.
Okay, so let's be honest, school closures are not about the students. Get that narrative for those who are looking at headlines and not data. This is about a logistical staffing issue. This is fear of litigation. This is not what is best for our students. Keeping schools closed to continue to stop the spread of the virus, well, what new problems are being created and multiplied as a result? More harm is being done to our youth by keeping schools closed. Now I ask you, what are these school closures truly a result of? What's best for our students or our staffing issues? Yes, we provide a safe environment. Wear a mask and wash your hands. Nobody should be forced to go to a job where it's going to threaten their life. They have a choice. They can take a year off, a privilege most do not have. They can choose a new career path. They do have a choice. Nobody is forcing them to go to work. Our students, our children, they're the only
Your time has ended.
we are taking their choices.
Thank you. Nancy McClure.
Thank you, Dr. Lefevre. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, thank you for allowing me to address you this evening. My name is Nancy McClure, and I have more than a quarter of a century teaching in this district. My husband and I have been taxpayers for over 30 years in District 211. I've come here tonight to talk to you about a personal matter. However, first of all, I must address these parents here. You are admirable for being here in front of the board tonight. And I must say, I am just in awe of what you've spoken about. Hearing what you've had to say, being a retired teacher in the district, I am embarrassed. Gym class from your bed? What the hell? Dr. Small, this is the largest public school district in the state. What is going on? There is a model out there that works, where kids are in school and they're learning face to face. It may not be in this state, but somewhere in this country, it's working. Go find it. Go find it. We are the largest school district in this state, public school district. Go find it. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Just go find it, adapt it. As teachers, we know that kids sitting in their bedroom, looking at a computer screen, supposed to be doing their chemistry. No, it's not going to work like it should be. Okay, that was my 1 minute for you guys. You're welcome. Now, where am I? Okay, taxpayer in the district. Okay. In 2014, I signed a separation agreement with District 211. At the time, I was only 52 years old. I began drawing long-term retirement disability thereafter and ultimately was turned permanently disabled. I have not worked a single day since leaving this district. Let me say that again. I was ultimately determined to be permanently disabled, and I have not worked a single day since leaving this district in 2014. When my husband retired this past May from a different district, TRS informed us that we would have to have individual insurance plans since we were both retired teachers. My husband's district pays his health premium in full, while 211 issues an insurance health annuity. When I contacted Dr. Britton about the annuity, however, he said I did not qualify because I had resigned, not retired. Well, back in 2014, I was 52. I could not have retired because you are not allowed to do that until you're at least 55,
You have 1 more minute.
or you're breaking state laws. Dr. Britton continued to disallow me any services. So I took it to our attorney, who is an education specialist. He has looked at the separation agreement. He has looked at the union contract. And he has said that you can certainly seek retirement annuity health insurance benefits. The position of the district that is taken, I have not met the 3 requirements for retirement, is not spelled out in the separation agreement. Mr. Erlach, our attorney, went on to say that neither document has stated that a person in my situation, an ADA covered with disability, would be stripped of his or her retirement health annuity benefits.
Your time has ended.
Okay? I ask you to reconsider what Mr. Britton has said to me. I will be continuing this fight. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who is in the auditorium tonight whose name has not been called, who would like the opportunity to address the board? If you could just raise your hand, please. 1, 2 people, I see. Sure, why don't we just take the person here closest to the front? Yeah, please come up to the podium. If you could be sure to let us know your name, please.
Hello. I'm a student at Hoffman Estates High School. My name is Sophia Steele. I'm a junior. I love school with all my heart. However, I can tell you right now, I hate school. School right now is a joke. Yesterday I was unable to attend school because Zoom wasn't working. In the past month, that's been a constant, oh, Zoom doesn't work, Zoom doesn't work. Don't worry about it. School's a choice now, which that should never be an option. School isn't an option. I'm involved with the school. I'm in student council. We should be preparing for school dances right now, school sports. Tomorrow should be our homecoming dance, homecoming football games, anything like that. So I had no intention of speaking tonight, but I just thought I'd let all of you know that from a student standpoint, school is a joke right now, and all of my friends hate school. I also am on peer jury for the Hoffman Estates Police Department, and the amount of drug cases, fights, weapons that we have with teenagers in Hoffman Estates who are arrested in Hoffman Estates is scary. And that's just in the 4 months. The amount of jury that I have to attend for the last 6 months of quarantine, whatever the reason is bad. So school would give us an opportunity for kids who don't have the home environment. If there's no home environment, it's not good at home, that their opportunity to escape home is school. And you're completely taking that away from everyone at home. The suicide rates are going up. Kids are choosing every day. There's a family of 6 that I know, and they have to choose every day who gets to do school because of Wi-Fi. Like that's not even, like, why is that a choice? School isn't a choice. So thank you for your time, and I hope you reconsider e-learning because it's a joke. Thank you.
Whoever the next person was, if please come to the podium.
Hello, my name is Margaret Jablonski, and I'm a mother of a freshman at Hoffman Estates High School, as well as 2 younger kids at Lincoln Prairie. I'm a nurse. I work at 3 different area hospitals. My husband is a firefighter paramedic. We have been at the front lines of this epidemic from the beginning. We have seen what COVID-19 does to those going through the severe illness. We understand that there are people out there who are afraid and should be afraid of getting sick. We strongly believe that these people should be encouraged to self-isolate and to follow their doctor's advice on how to remain safe. However, we do not accept what is being done to our children's education. We find that remote learning has become detrimental to their academic growth. It hinders their social and emotional well-being and development. It jeopardizes their physical and mental health. We cannot stand by and allow that to go on. As much as we appreciate the work put into the remote curriculum and applaud the efforts to slowly start bringing students into the buildings, it is not enough. We need to do what is socially responsible, no matter how difficult. We need to allow our kids to soar. With that in mind, I have a few questions, issues, and comments that I would like you to consider. What is being done by our school or community to mitigate risks and to ensure that the IDPH guidelines provide a workable framework and guidance that allows and encourages in-person instruction? What tangible changes are being made since the last board meeting? What type of advocating for in-person learning is being done at the school district, state agencies level? If we can all agree that remote learning is not the best option, but rather a Band-Aid, if you will, what kind of pushback is there from the District 211, which supposedly represents our community and has our kids' best interest at heart, against the unreasonable and unrealistic IDPH guidelines? Since you are so concerned for our kids' well-being, what is being done by the district to ensure that the environment that they are now learning in is one conducive to optimal education? Is the district monitoring students' living conditions and checking if they are acceptable? Air conditioning during hot summer months is a must. What opportunities were offered to those whose home temperatures were in the 90s in August? What about winter, which can be brutal in Illinois? We all remember how cold it can get. Is the district confirming that the students have adequate heating in their homes? With many parents out of work due to state response to the pandemic, is anything being done to ease the financial burden of having kids learn at home? Is District 211 following recent numbers on kids' suicide attempts, instances of abuse at home, accidental poisonings, or other accidents as closely as the increasing COVID-19 statistics? What is expected of the district employees and teachers in terms of mitigating those, since they are apparently responsible for mitigation of COVID-19 risks? Does the board and its members, alongside the superintendent, rally for delegalizing cars, motor vehicle accidents, delegalizing sugar, diabetes, delegalizing alcohol and tobacco products? Need I say more? How do you justify depriving kids of life-changing opportunities? What about those whose only option to go to college depends on sports scholarships? Has there been any reportable research to show if or how using the platforms we currently have at our disposal impacts learning and growth? What are the expectations the district has for our students' growth? Do we expect them to gain knowledge at the same rate as with in-person instruction? If not, that to me is unacceptable. How is the school district planning on restoring trust among the parents, kids, teachers, and administrators? Judging by my many conversations with other parents, the us versus them mentality is rampant. I will not insult the board members with providing links to the American Academy of Pediatrics, CDC, and other country statistics. Those are readily available for those interested, though I would be happy to oblige if necessary. If, however,
You have 1 more minute.
I will, however, ask that you show me the science that proves kids are a significant vector in COVID-19 transmission. I ask that you show me the science that proves that kids die at alarmingly high rates of COVID-19. I ask that you show me the science that shows social isolation, remote learning, and fear-mongering actually improves kids' lives. And if we are following the numbers in science and not emotionally charged manipulation, I do not understand why crippling an entire generation in the name of saving lives, mind you, 96% of those who contract COVID-19 survive, would be considered the greater good. COVID-19 is terrible, but it's not going away. We need to learn to live with it. We need to learn to be safe around it. And what better way to learn than in school? I want to be clear, I'm not advocating for mandatory in-person instruction. I'm advocating for a choice. Give us back our choice. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes the public comment portion of the meeting. The next item on our agenda is the public hearing for the 2020-2021 budget. We have a suggested motion that the public hearing on the 2020-2021 budget of Township High School District 211 is now open. Can someone please move that?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, the hearing is now open. No one has signed up to address the board on the budget. Is there anyone that is here tonight that didn't get a chance to sign up that would like to address the board on the budget? If so, if you could just raise your hand. Okay, that will bring us to a suggested motion that the public hearing on the 2020-2021 budget of Township High School District 211 is now closed. Can someone please move that?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, the public hearing is now closed. Tonight, we do not have any presentations, so that will bring us to our consent agenda. We have a suggested motion that the consent agenda be approved as presented. Can someone please move that?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
I had requested some data on the property tax appeal rates, and I just wanted to thank the administration for looking into that.
Sure. Okay, if there are no other questions or comments, roll call, please.
Ms. Cabell?
Aye.
Mr. Kramer?
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Aye.
Mrs. Klunkowitz?
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum?
Aye.
Mr. Young?
Aye.
Mr. Lefevre?
Aye. That will bring us to special reports. We have our Freedom of Information Act requests. If there are no questions about those. Next item is the 2020-2021 school year update. Dr. Small?
Thank you. The challenges of the 2020-2021 school year is not what anyone would have expected or wanted. District 211 remains committed to continue to offer additional in-person instructional and extracurricular opportunities for all students. These opportunities are based upon the most recent information from the Illinois State Board of Education, the Illinois Department of Public Health, and the Illinois High School Association, the IHSA. The information from these organizations has been updated in the past month and as needed that they ensure the productive opportunities that are available for all students. The remote and hybrid scenarios that were presented at the July 2020 Board of Education meeting remain in place as the core schedule options for our students and staff until a traditional scenario is possible. Even as guidance, metrics, and regulations change from week to week, the students and staff have the ability to maintain consistency in their daily schedule as more in-person opportunities continue to be afforded. Our teachers and staff continue to work diligently to create the best scenarios they can within the situations they are given. The following opportunities have been encouraged for all students to connect to teachers, counselors, administrators, and other school personnel. These in-person arrangements allow students to transition into understanding the key safety protocols that we have in our schools, which include our wellness screenings, wearing a mask, maintaining the 6-foot distancing, and our sanitation and disinfecting practices. These afternoon appointments and many activities are also available remotely for families who so choose. This summer, we had our in-person athletic camps as well as band camps prior to the start of the school year. On August 10th, whatever IHSA athletics were allowed, we continued those. That includes boys and girls golf, boys and girls cross country, girls tennis, and girls swimming and diving. On the 8th day of school, in-person afternoon appointments began for our English language learners and in the departments of business education, applied technology, and family consumer science. Our Alternative Learning Academy opened to invited students to come in. Each week, we have additional in-person offerings as we started to bring more students into our school. The following week, science, music, art, wellness, and after-school activities began for in-person opportunities. The next week, English, math, social studies, and world language. And following with this week, our IHSA contact days began for all sports. This will continue through October, and we've had between 400 and 600 students sign up per school for attending these opportunities. As I mentioned earlier, the guidance from the IDPH, the ISBE, and the ISBHSA changes, and we pivot with those changes. The IDPH issued the Adaptive Pause Metrics interim guidance for schools in combination with our local health departments. Our local health department is the Cook County Department of Public Health. It has maintained similar expectations for our safety protocols, including 6 feet apart, wearing masks, remaining home when you're exhibiting any COVID-19 symptoms, hand sanitizing, disinfecting procedures, and limits of 50 people in any one area. What changed with this new guidance were new metrics and information directly related to school. There have been 5 metrics given to us as a school district from the Illinois Department of Public Health. New weekly case rates, test positivity, weekly count of new cases increased, weekly count of new youth case increased, and county transmission. Weekly new rate case and test positivity are considered the most representative of the likelihood of transmission. These metrics are designed to be indicators of minimal transmission, moderate transmission, or substantial transmission. These metrics are available on a dashboard presented by the IDPH. These items are also available for reference as agenda item in board docs for people to see. The current metrics from Cook County, from the 5 metrics that were given, indicate that we have 1 substantial, 1 moderate, and the rest are minimal. Our local Department of Public Health asks us to look at trend lines in terms of from week to week as this data is put out, what is available, and what mitigations can be put in place in order to continue to increase our in-school, in-person opportunities. The current hybrid scenario is available with this data considering that the minimal and moderate metrics continue to remain in place. The Cook County Department of Public Health is our local health department and is available for review for this data if the suburban Cook County data does not indicate a continued availability for us to continue to bring in-person availability for our students. There are also 5 other pieces of metrics that need to be looked at to continue to keep our schools open. 1 is the availability of personal protective equipment. 2 is our sanitation and disinfecting supply. 3 is the availability of our licensed personnel in terms of qualified on-site substitutes should our in-personnel be either working remotely, quarantined, or absent from work. Our non-licensed personnel availability, many of which have the ability to have substitutes, but some of which would be more difficult. For example, our bus drivers, in terms of transporting students, need to have training and on-site training in order to actually be a substitute, as well as consistent implementation of our safety protocols to limit our quarantine numbers. The last 5 metrics that I just gave you are currently all viable for our continued bringing of in-person opportunities for our students. In terms of the next steps for our students for the phase in-person opportunities, the next steps will be continue to prioritize the student groups per the ISB guidelines. Prioritization of specific special ed populations during the morning sessions is starting the week of September 21st and continuing a phase-in through mid-October. Continued direct family outreach to families of English language learners to increase their academic support and activity athletic participation. Individual connections to students, including home visits for students who are at risk of academic failure due to school disengagement. Extending outreach for current in-person athletic activity and academic supports to connect all students to school personnel and to assist them in learning our safety protocols. Per the IDPH and the ISBE, 6-foot spacing between desks in the classroom is needed. At a full 50% model, all classrooms and common areas cannot attain the safety protocol. In order to facilitate a hybrid scenario with these newer requirements, a true count of potential in-person students is needed. By the beginning of October, families will be asked to commit to either remaining remote until the end of the semester, which is December 18th, or reserve a seat for in-person classes during a hybrid scenario. This survey will allow the number of students to be assessed for the maximum class capacity and to evaluate if the every other person in-person rotation at 50% for the hybrid scenario is feasible. If it is not feasible, a model less than 50% will need to be implemented. We need to monitor the IDPH health metrics for school determination and the District 211 operational metrics that I just went through. If these metrics stay viable, the hybrid scenario could start as soon as the week of October 26th. Communication again for all stakeholders will need to continue as we plan for the potential increase of in-person opportunities. The communication with Cook County Department of Public Health needs to continue to look at the health metrics for school determination if they do not consistently remain in the minimal and moderate transmission range. Discussions with the Cook County Department of Health will include the transmission risk for in-person learning for our District 211 boundaries should the minimal and moderate transmission ranges not continue on our metrics. This plan is based on our current IDPH and ISB information. And as I have presented to the board in the past, these metrics do change, and we have to be aware that that change is possible. With these guidelines and the ability of our families to commit to either in-person or remote learning, at least through the end of the semester, it does give us the opportunity to bring into a hybrid scenario by the end of October.
Any other questions from board members?
Anybody else? I have 3 different topics related to this. First of all, what's the union's position on the hybrid, remote, so on and so forth? Are they working with the administration to make hybrid happen?
The hybrid scenario that I'm presenting today at a 50% level is the scenario that the union worked with us prior to summer. The union is aware of the end of October start date for a hybrid scenario with these metrics involved.
Begs the question, 50% may or may not be attainable. Why not 30%? Could we operate in a hybrid manner with 30%?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what I said. So we will shoot for 50% allows us to do the original 1 week on, 1 week off. If we have to go less than 50%, we can, but then we can't have students coming every day for a week. We have to come up with another option for that.
Okay.
So we're shooting for the 50% first.
Okay. The third thing is this. It was late breaking. It was in the Daily Herald today. Barrington School District has, I think, a very definitive plan. And I'll go through some of the numbers with you. What they've done, they have localized. I fully believe that relying on suburban Cook County statistics is a rabbit hole. Cook County goes from Algonquin to Gary, Indiana. And to have Northwest Cook County lumped in with the entire Cook County distorts these statistics. What the Barrington School District did was break it down by zip code. We could do the same thing, okay? This is a localized issue, and I think we need to approach it locally rather than globally based on some very nebulous, ever-changing statistics and guidance from IDPH. It's not working. So let me just, the article is public, obviously, but let me just give you they've got 4 phases. They're in phase 2, and they have different, very, very specific thresholds. And it has to do with, I think it's close to the IDPH, but it may be a little bit different. Phase 2, it's 10 days of, this is per 100,000 incidents of 70 to 174. Positivity rate 7% to 7.99%. PPE supplies for 2 weeks, and the staff availability from 86 to 89%. To go to phase 3, which is a hybrid, the per 1,000 rate needs to be between 7 and 69. The positivity rate needs to be 5%. The PPE for 1 month, and the staff has to be 90% available. To go to open, full open, the positivity rate has to be less than 7. The infection rate has to be less than 7 per 100,000. Again, locally, not suburban Cook County wide. The positivity rate less than 4.999%. PPE 2 or more months. It's referred to as multiple, and the staffing rate has to be at 95%. Those are numbers which I think are very clear, they are very tangible, and I think the community would understand that we are doing what is right in our area, not lumping in our decision based on what's happening suburban Cook-wide. So that's the end of my statement.
If I can draw the board's attention to the second page of the document, which has the new case rate per 100,000 people. The IDPH has minimal and moderate transmission. Those are the 2 rates that we are looking for to stay in that range of minimal and moderate. The moderate range for the new case rates per 100,000 has to be less than 100,000. I believe Barrington is shooting for less than 70, for 7 per the 100,000. This is less than 100. So this is a more generous, if I can use that word. The IDPH guidelines are a more generous case rate than what you just quoted to me. The positivity rate needs to be between 5 and 8% in order to be considered moderate. Over 5%, over 8% would be considered substantial. Right now on the current dashboard, there's only 1 indicator that is substantial. And in terms of working with the Cook County Department of Health and going from a Cook County suburban view into our zip codes, that is the conversation that I referenced that would happen with the Cook County Department of Health. We have 15 zip codes that go into our school district. 4 of them represent populations of 15 to 17% of our direct families. 6 of them represent 3 to 8% of our families, and 5 of them represent only 1 to 2% of the families. That would be the conversation with the Cook County Department of Health, where if at the Cook County suburban level, we're not making all the moderate and minimal, that conversation happens with them, as the IDPH says, where we start to look at more specific data as well as the risk mitigations we in District 211 have in place.
Two comments there. Number one, it's not the Illinois Department of Public Health or the Cook County Department of Health's decision, it's yours. Okay, it is yours. And we need to look at it locally. I think there was a trade-off in Barrington. They may have made their threshold a little more stringent because they, and that's the trade-off for looking at it locally. I would be interested in an analysis in a couple of days using the Barrington model, using it by zip code. Okay, not by zip code, but all the zip codes feed into the school district, into 211. It would be very interesting to see where we stand with it.
If I may, the resolution and the guidance of the board is to follow the IDPH guidelines as well as the ISBE guidelines.
We can change that if you want to.
I would not recommend going outside of the IDPH guidelines in terms of the risk that puts us at for putting metrics that are not connected to a Department of Public Health.
Okay.
The Cook County Department of Health does have the ability to look at the zip codes and help with that decision.
You're not willing to take a look at the zip code model?
I don't, from the way the Illinois Department of Public Health has it set up, you work with the local Department of Health for any type of changes in your school procedures. And at the first level, you start at the suburban Cook County. And then if that is not the right level of indication, you can dive deeper. You only need to dive deeper if you need to.
Well, I think we need to. Mr. Kramer, I hate to interrupt you, but maybe we need to hear from the other board members if you don't mind. Let's do that, because I also have some thoughts.
Well,
but
everybody was given an opportunity to speak, and no one did, and I did. So the floor is yours, Mrs. Klimkowitz.
Thank you. No, I agree with everything that the parents that spoke up here and the students had said. I think it's important that we get the kids back into the school as soon as possible. I'm wondering, is there any way that we can do that? You mentioned that if we go at 30%, we'd have to adjust the days that we're here. Is that something that can be explored?
We are going to survey the parents and have that data by the beginning of October. When we have that data, we have the ability to run, this will be by student, so it is not a general survey. Is the parent actually committing to one situation or the other? Then we have the ability to run a report that tells us how many students per either team. We had the students already split up to 2 teams into our system, and actually see how many students would have the in-person option in each classroom to see our maximum numbers with our classroom and our ability to fit that. If that works at 50%, we do not have to change anything. If that doesn't work, then we'll be able to see the number we need to drop down to in order to fit the correct number of students within there. Our first goal is to remain at the 50%.
What do you think is a possibility that we can do to get our students back into the classroom sooner? I know we had to pivot. We had the hybrid set up. It sounded good. It was going to work. And then there were some changes that had to take place in regards to it. So is it a possibility to expedite the survey and to move it up quicker so we can get the students back into the classroom? Because I know it really does, it does make a difference. And I know that my granddaughter's in 54, she's kind of lost. I know my grandson in Texas, who's in 2nd grade, they went back into the classroom, so they're doing a hybrid. So I'm really hoping, I don't want to lose a generation, and I agree with what's been said, and social emotional learning, social emotional health is really important. Whatever we can do to get them back in as soon as possible, we really need to do that.
In terms of the October 26th, that week date, that gives us the opportunity to set it up successfully so when our students come in, they can remain coming in. When we open the doors earlier than that, we need to ensure that the quarantines that can happen don't happen, and we have the procedures in place in order to make that happen. Next week, our special ed populations begin coming in for their morning sessions, and those will continue to phase in throughout the next few weeks through mid-October. And then after that, we start bringing in the rest of the population.
Excuse me, I actually have a hearing impairment, and so it's really important for me that only one person speaks at a time. So when Dr. Small is speaking, even though I appreciate the participation, audience comments are making it not possible for me to participate in the business portion of the meeting. So that's why we had public comments at the beginning. I really appreciated everything you had to say. I take copious notes, but now I need to listen to what my fellow board members are saying and my superintendent in order to participate.
Any other questions or comments for Dr. Small?
Yes. With regard to these pieces, they're all guidelines, correct? There's nothing here that is concrete enforcement, restriction, penalty for deviating. So let's say our 6-foot distancing, if we were to deviate from that guideline and go to a 5-foot distancing, because as far as I know, there's really not a lot of scientific evidence that there's a big significant difference in contamination between 5 feet and 6 feet, unless there's a study that would prove that otherwise. I think it's kind of an arbitrary number from what I understand. What would that do to our capacity to stay at a hybrid half and half?
The 6-foot capacity is the capacity set forth by the ISBE and the IDPH when there are situations when you are next to someone for greater than 15 minutes. In our classrooms, our students will be in there for significantly greater than 15 minutes.
Correct.
So we are not setting up a 6-foot distancing in terms of hallway passing. That's less than 15 minutes if you're walking through the halls.
But that is a guideline, right? It's not a
It is
set metric that's punishable. If we go to 5 feet, we're not going to be fined or...
the current resolution that the board has given to me to operate under are under the ISBE, the IDPH, and the IHSA guidelines. It is not my recommendation that you go outside of those and start doing things that are not set by an organization that works directly and coherently between the 3 organizations. In terms of your direct question, if we went to 5 feet at a 50% model, it would probably be very feasible. But I'm not saying we won't meet it at 6 feet, depending on what the numbers come in with.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a couple comments. One is, since Mr. Kramer brought up the Barrington plan, I'd like to add to that, and that is the timeline associated with their plan. Over the next 2 weeks, they're finalizing their hybrid plan for each level. We already have a hybrid plan for our designated levels. Their next board meeting is October 6th, where they will share district metric status and the hybrid plan. October 7th through October 20th, which correlates to the timeline for District 211, they're planning to conduct family surveys to assess interest in distance learning or the hybrid model. During that time, they're also going to address operational and staffing issues should they go with the hybrid model option. At the October 20th board meeting, they're going to receive information about the metrics. And then on October 26th is their target hybrid start date, should they choose to go hybrid. And if I'm not mistaken, that sounds like a similar date, if not the same date, as the possible hybrid model for 211, should we go that route. So in bringing up what Barrington is doing, it's important to also note that from a timeline perspective, it correlates very similarly to the plan of our own district. Now, I also paid very close attention to all the comments that were made here this evening. I also pay very close attention to the comments and feedback that I receive outside of a board meeting from family and friends who have students and who work within our district, and the complications associated with e-learning or v-learning, whatever you want to call it, whether it's in District 211, 54, or 15. And I empathize and feel very strongly that it is a challenge, and I understand that challenge. My priority is the health and well-being of our students and staff. If there are concerns regarding their physical and mental well-being, I believe there are other options available to help and support students who are having emotional and psychological concerns and distress, and their families to get through the situation that we're in right now. But I do look forward to the plan that we have to evaluate the possibility of returning back to our schools. I think that the physical environment in our buildings needs to accommodate the best interest of our overall health and well-being of the students, as well as the educational environment for them to be successful. That's what I have to say.
Anyone else?
Yes. I want to express the same, not to beat a dead horse, I want to express the same amount of empathy. I know that none of us are happy we're in this situation. None of us are happy about this. I have young children that attend District 15. I myself work for District 15, and I'm in the same situation as a lot of other, parents at home. My husband is unable to assist, and so everything's falling on my shoulders. And the social isolation and the difficulties associated with virtual learning, not just for the students, but for parents like myself, are not hypotheticals for me. They are my everyday life. I have, the closest family members that I have are all frontline workers, so that is a part of my daily life as well. And I have severely immunocompromised family members and friends and family who have had it. So I'm not talking about this from a board seat and with no real connection. That being said, I am not in support of a plan that would be disconnected from the Department of Public Health or ISB. I think that would be extremely unwise. And I also want our students in the classroom as soon as possible, which brings me to my question. I know I've asked something like this in previous meetings, but I just want to reiterate and get a little bit more detail. Dr. Small, for students that are experiencing symptoms of depression, anxiety, things that I've noticed in my own children, young children, in dealing with virtual learning, I know that in the past you've said that, like, for example, school resources like social workers are available. Is that continuing to be the case, that school counselors and social workers are available to students who need those services?
It is. They're available, and they can, it goes both ways. So when a teacher or another staff member or anybody says, I'm sensing this, they engage, or it can be a direct contact to them. They are available for individual appointments, either remotely or in person during their academic support time.
Okay, that's good. So there's both virtual options and in-person options available and included in the metrics that we talked about before. That's good. And we also have, I believe, as a benefit to our staff, we have employee assistance helpline and programs that would be able to direct staff to resources who need it.
Correct. We have run 3 webinars for our staff through the EAP, and those webinars also then lead them to individual services should they need that.
And so I know that this might be a little bit unorthodox, but let's say we're talking about parents such as we heard earlier, or somebody like myself who is at home trying to manage and juggle all these balls in the air. Even though that parent, of course, by rights not being a student, can't make an appointment with a school social worker, is there information on our district website or through any of our communications about resources that would be available, not student-specific, but to families overall, about connected community services?
Our individual school websites through our student services departments help connect those families, so that website would be the starting point for them. We would always want to follow up with a conversation with the family to make sure that we get them right where they need to be and can get some immediate help.
Okay. My last question was in response to a student who talked about having significant issues with, Zoom instruction. So when a student is experiencing technical difficulties, and I'm not talking about like the Zoom outage that was, blanketed everywhere last week, but school-specific technical issues. So for example, my 7-year-old's Chromebook just wasn't working, and so I had to go through the process with District 15 to try and replace that. Are students able to call a helpline or their homeschool? Do they know who to contact when they're having connectivity issues and their parents, for example, aren't able to hop off a conference call and supervise?
So the helpline, we have one helpline per school that has dedicated technology staff to work through that individual problem with the student. Certainly if it is our device, we are able to fix that, trade it in, whatever we need to do on that end. If it is a connectivity end on the student, that's something where we do the best we can. We may have to give them advice in terms of what to do. Our intervention teams out of our assistant principals' offices, whether they be teams within our schools or the 10 and 12-month disciplinarians, are doing home visits to our students who are not connecting with their teachers.
Okay.
So our current attendance rate ranges between 93 and 95.5% on our Zoom meetings, and they target the other 4% on average across our district to reach out to them via phone. If they don't get a phone contact, they are knocking on the door to find out what it is for our students that is stopping them from getting on. We do find that the ability to connect them in our our academic supports, as well as our after-school opportunities where we do have transportation for all this to occur, is the one connection that is helping getting our kids right now connected to the school.
That's good. So empathizing with the frustrations of this situation that everybody's struggling with, I really appreciate the clarity on the metrics for moving into a hybrid scenario. I appreciate that we have a target date that seems to be in concurrence with other nearby districts. I know your personal commitment and your entire team's commitment to getting students in the classroom as soon as possible. I appreciate you doing that even in the midst of ever-changing guidelines from outside authorities, and trying to balance everybody's competing interests to come to a solution that's the best out of a terrible situation. So in the meantime, until we can get 50% or whatever we end up with, hopefully 50% by October, knowing that we have outreach teams that are trying desperately to reach disconnected students, and knowing that we have the regular provision of our school resources to students who need them, and then communication of local resources to families who are under-resourced, as well as hotspots to provide with families who are struggling with internet access and Wi-Fi capability, et cetera. I appreciate that there's a big push for service provision until we can do, I think, what everybody on this board, when we had the initial discussion in July, and lauded and heaped praise on Dr. Small and her team for the plan, because we were all very excited about the hybrid scenario, and I know that we're all excited to act on that as soon as possible. So
A clarification as a follow-up to Ms. Cavill's points. What is the district's policy on marking tardy and absent while students are in the hybrid scenario? I had one parent come to me and explain that they had a power outage, and their child during that power outage had to travel 25 minutes to get to a location that, a family member in order to connect, and they weren't given any consideration for that. What's our policy on that?
So attendance is taken twice during each period. It's taken near the beginning of the period and near the end of the period. It could have very easily been, and I don't know the details of this specific case, that the teacher marked the student absent because of the disconnection during that time when they were not in the classroom.
Sure. Right.
The follow-up with the intervention office would be the phone call where they would have gotten into the detail of what the problem behind the absence was. The parent can certainly call the attendance office and have that conversation. That wouldn't be something that would be punishable to the student by any means.
I would add one more thing if I may, just as a follow-up to Ms. Cavill. I think that's an excellent point of providing resources to the families. I know that it's comforting to be able to touch base with their school counselor or with the social worker. However, I think that there's other agencies such as Kenneth Young Center, Alexian Brothers, Behavioral Health that have LCPCs, LPCs, LCSWs, people that can actually do more of the therapeutic counseling if the family is struggling. So I think that that's really important of getting that information out. So that was a good point of putting that forward. Thank you.
I don't think there's anybody on this board that doesn't want the kids back in school. I mean, I definitely think that remote learning is not the best situation for anybody. I happened to stop by the schools during some of the athletic events, the swimming events, and I was there Tuesday at Prum when they started football practice and some flags and something like that. And you could definitely see that the kids really enjoyed being back at school. And I think the teachers and the coaches wanted it that way too. They enjoyed the interaction. So I don't think that there's anybody right here, right now, that don't want our kids back in school. The main thing that we're looking at is their safety. And I mean, I know people that have COVID-19, and in fact, I got a phone call this afternoon, just before this meeting, telling me that my niece has COVID in Wisconsin. So, I mean, it's a stressful situation if it's your child that gets the COVID, and that's what we don't want to happen. But however, don't think that we don't want your kids in school.
To follow up on Mr. Young's point, are all the schools implementing activities the same way? I know that my children at Conant aren't doing any marching band practices or anything beyond Zoom. They're all playing their instruments at home. At the same time, the parking lot at Friend is very engaged, and there's several groups there all at once, as we witnessed on Tuesday. And I'm just wondering if there's a district-wide implementation of the activities, or are these individually based on whoever the sponsor is, or based on what the school does, and how we're equalizing that as a district?
So the specific activities at each school, there are certain ones that are common, and then there are specific ones that are based on the interests of the students within that particular school. And I'll start with band. For example, band at Friend, as you mentioned, has been historically a competitive band where they practice after school as an activity and then go to competitions. Conant High School, for example, is not a competitive band, and then therefore the band practice occurs within the school day. So that's the difference between the two in that particular area. Within our activities across the district, our sponsors have the ability to do both in-person and remote options. We certainly do not encourage our sponsors to do 100% in person, because that does not give the opportunity to our families who want to participate, who do not want to attend in person.
Any other questions?
Thank you for the update and the detailed information.
Yeah, this is one thing where we all support as soon as possible back in school. a good thing. Sometimes it doesn't, maybe not feel that way, but we appreciate your effort and everyone's effort to get the students back as soon as possible. Thank you. Okay, the next item on our agenda is the District 211 Equity Team update. Dr. Small, did you have anything to say on this?
I do. The first meeting was completed with excellent attendance and truly an enlightening opening of why people are passionate about equity. The chance for student, staff, and parent voices can be heard and will continue throughout our committee work. There are 4 subcommittees that will continue on with the work: equitable and opportunity achievement, equitable curriculum and instruction, equitable practices and mindsets, school, family, and community relationships. Board members are a part of this committee work and were assigned on their first preference. The board members will have the opportunity to hear the committee work firsthand and bring those experiences back to the entire board each month, as this will be a reoccurring agenda item. The entire board will be presented the recommendations of the committees of their work this year in the spring. At that time, the board will review, discuss, and move the entire plan forward only as it sees fit as an entire board.
Any questions here?
I do. Who is Dr. Gary Howard? And how is he being employed and how is he being paid?
Dr. Gary Howard is one of the consultants that works with one of our high schools, and that is funded through Title I funding.
I'm sorry, one of our consultants where?
It's one of the consultants that works with Palatine High School, and the fee is funded through Title I funding.
Is he contracted by the high school? Is he contracted by the district?
He's contracted by the district, but he works only with Palatine High School.
And he's been a contractor for a while?
He's been a consultant for, I believe, 2 years, but I would have to check with that.
Are you aware that Dr. Gary Howard is himself controversial? Okay. I'll talk with y'all.
Mm-hmm. There are 2 Gary Howards, so I also want to, in our conversation, make sure we're talking about the same one.
Dr. Gary Howard created something called the Corwin Deep Equity Program, which is controversial.
Any other questions on the equity team update?
Mr. Kramer, if I have a request. So I appreciate you bringing up the Barrington plan, for example, that you wrote up. I appreciate you bringing up the Barrington plan that you mentioned that was written up in the Daily Herald earlier today that I also saw. I appreciate that you have information theoretically about Dr. Howard. I would appreciate if you could share that information, with me and probably the other fellow board members before the meeting. It would make it easier for me to follow your conversation.
Okay. Well, I'm trying to be diplomatic here because people have not had a chance to look into it.
No. With that in mind, right, generally we have the guideline that if a board member has something to bring up, that they would reach out to the superintendent.
Yes.
To raise the level of awareness initially, and then in terms of facilitation of getting information to other board members, that would also be the route to go.
Yes.
So as to try to be cautious of not violating an Open Meetings Act.
Of course.
And having a meeting outside of a regular board meeting. So if we could just share with the superintendent, questions
Yes.
or comments, things that we know before the meeting,
Yes.
and then not bring it up here where nobody knows what is being
That's
talked
what
about.
I'm asking
that
for.
would be helpful.
Yes.
So
Thank you.
Is there any other way to go about that, Dr. Small, or how would you like people to reach out to you with information like that?
That's fine. That's
Just
helpful.
like that.
Mhm.
Okay.
And I think that's really important because you're talking about a person's credibility. So maybe that, as Mr. Lefebvre had said, that needed to be shared with Dr. Small.
And I said I would do that offline, Mrs. Klimkowitz.
But that probably
Thank you very
should have
much.
been the discussion
I
beforehand.
don't need a lecture, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I think that will bring us to our report on new professional staff. Does anyone have any questions or comments here? Or Dr. Small, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I do not.
Okay, that will bring us to next item, which is our 6th day enrollment. there are no questions here,
I would
Dr.
like to,
Small.
I would like to thank Kathy Lingle. She does these projections each year. This is her last year with us, so we have some large shoes to fill next year when we put forth our 6-day enrollments and our projections.
Thank you, Ms. Lingle. Okay, that will bring us to our class size committee report. Questions or comments here? Or Dr. Small? Okay. And that will bring us next to our salary compensation report. Any questions here?
I do have a quick question. Do we have to do the IMRF report?
We do. It is not a report that's required to come to the Board of Education, but it's required to be published on our website 6 days after the adoption of the budget.
Which we do, then we do publish
yes.
it on the website.
Okay,
yes.
so we've got it out there. All righty, thank you.
Thank you, yeah.
With the mask and hearing, what report was that, Mrs. Klimkowitz?
For the IMRF salaries.
Okay.
That was my question
what I
about
thought.
being able to see that, yes.
Okay, next item on the agenda is 62-acre land update and future planning consideration for land proceeds. We have a report. Dr. Small, did you have anything to add here?
This is an informational report based on the discussion at our last meeting. I thought it might be helpful for all board members to have a summary as to what has been happening since in the strategic plan, the examination of this asset started. So that's the purpose of this report. And beginning October 1 at the Budget and Finance meeting, we will look at the proceeds of the land and connect it to our long-term financial outlook and continue that conversation at the October board meeting.
Did anyone have any questions for tonight? Okay. Next item is our Community Connections newsletter. If there are no questions or comments here, that will bring us to unfinished business. Our first item is a resolution authorizing the adoption of the 2020-2021 budget. We have a suggested motion that the Board of Education adopt the resolution as presented to establish the fiscal year of the school district to begin July 1, 2020 and end June 30, 2021, and that the budget as presented for the fiscal year 2020-2021 be adopted. Can someone please move that?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
I just want to reiterate what I said at the last meeting. $4.5 million surplus because of COVID. Above and beyond the $5 million, which I thought was unnecessarily put in the IMRF fund, that's $9.5 million. There is a planned deficit, but the deficit is really because the projected expenses exceed projected revenues. It's not really a deficit because in the end, the budget that we have before us does include the $17+ million for the land sale, which is quite frankly used to cover the reduction in the reserve. So my vote is going to be no because of those reasons.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions here? Roll call, please.
Yes.
No.
Aye.
Nay.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that motion passes. Before we leave tonight, I believe Ms. Hummel has the signature document for us. So near the end of the meeting, when we're done, if you could stay for a minute while that gets passed around, please. Okay, the next item is our proposed new policy, accelerated programming. We have a suggested motion that proposed new policy IGAD, accelerated programming, be adopted and included in the board policy manual. Further, that the superintendent be directed to make appropriate distribution. Can somebody please move that?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call, please.
Mr. Young?
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz?
Aye.
Ms. Cavill?
Aye.
Mr. Kramer?
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum?
Aye.
Mr. Lefevre?
Aye. Our next item is the Illinois Association of School Boards Equity Workshop. We have a suggested motion that the Board of Education schedule a special Board of Education meeting on Monday, October 26th, 2020, at Hoffman Estates High School, beginning at 7 p.m. for the purpose of an Illinois Association of School Boards workshop entitled Equity, an Educational Imperative. Can someone please move that?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Again, I'd just like to know what the end goal would be if we're going to call a special session for this. There should be some kind of tangible outcome to this.
Does anyone want to respond to that?
I will.
Yeah, please.
In terms of the workshop that is provided, this certainly is an opportunity for the board as a whole, since it is a board meeting, to engage in the discussion around equity, to hear some of the common points, some of the different situations that will be talked about in terms of at any equity conversation across the state, as well as our equity committee meeting. So it's the opportunity for the board to have that knowledge as we go into future discussions, if the board should so choose to do that.
Couldn't we do a board town hall that was more specifically focused to our community, where we engage our community on an equity discussion and use that time to grasp local issues versus looking for examples that may not be as localized as some of our issues?
I think this is a good opportunity for us to kind of take a look with direction of the IASB of getting a better understanding of ourselves and maybe our biases and things of that nature, and a learning for all of us here. And then, you know, a town meeting would probably be a good thing, maybe later on, but at least I think getting
But we don't
kind
have,
of a stepping stone.
but if we don't have the context of what our community needs are, we're kind of putting the cart before the horse.
I think this would be good to get an overview and have a discussion before having something like that with the community. That's my thought in regards to it. That, you know, you asked why it's a learning opportunity, and I think I, for one, believe in being a lifelong learner. You always pick something up. You know, maybe these are practices that we do follow, but we always learn something.
If I may suggest that if there is any further discussion of a town hall-like meeting, that wait until the October report coming back from the equity team, because that's part of what the equity team is charged with, is gathering that information. So at least you would hear the plans of the committees. They need to meet, make their plans. That will be brought back to the board in October for that information. So you'll see kind of the pathway they're writing and how you can support or enhance that.
Right, and from my perspective, the role of the board is to strategically determine goals for the administration and not necessarily be in the tactical execution or the operations of those things. So that's why I'm trying to figure out what our goal beyond just being lifelong learners might be, as far as, you know, we may feel good after 3 hours, but what's tangible after that? What does the community get for us self-enrichment? For our self-enrichment, how do we turn that around and return that to the community that put us here?
I think it's our practice. You know, what are we going to learn? What do we practice then after what we've learned? I think that's important. So yeah, you're right. How do we present that? So we're going to learn something from this. We're going to have a discussion, and how do we put it forward?
I'd like to make some comments. So the tangible takeaway is to be a better board member, and be a better board member in appreciating and understanding and valuing racial and cultural differences, inclusion and diversity in our community and our school district. Once we have a greater appreciation and value of that, and self-understanding as a board member and a board of education, I think then we'll be better prepared to have a town hall meeting, to listen to the community, to move forward with the equity plan that the district is putting in place.
I mean, from my point of view, it says very clearly, participants will deepen their understanding of the important central role boards play in creating an equitable school environment. Me being a new board member, I'm very interested to learn about that. I also think it will help me better prepare for my participation in the particular committee that I'm going to be participating in. So, I mean, it seems to me to be fairly obvious what the takeaway would be.
Yeah, I have a comment. I believe 3 hours is excessive. Okay, I've reviewed the course material in detail. It's largely a exercise in self-evaluation, which I don't think is really appropriate at the board level. I actually called Bea Young, who is the author of, who co-authored the workshop with IASB, and also expressed my concerns over some inconsistencies in the material. I don't believe that the syllabus is balanced, and it fails to mention something which it's in key learnings. It's on page 13. I won't go over all of them. I'll make a comment on one. However, the 50th anniversary of the Coleman Report in 2016 confirmed that educational equity remains a goal rather than a reality for most of the nation's students and school districts. True, but what the syllabus does not mention is that the Coleman Report was done back in the 60s, and the author of that was asked specifically, what is the most important thing that determines an educational outcome for a student? And his reply was the family, and that is not in the material. I cannot vote to have this presented in closed session, perhaps an open session, for 3 hours. It's overkill.
Dr. Small, do our staff, including administration, and even unlicensed staff through District 211, routinely undergo professional development sessions?
Yes.
Yes. Are some of those sessions related to equity in practice and inclusion?
Yes.
Yes, and that is for our staff across the board, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Are those sessions mandatory?
Yes.
Yes, so I don't see why I as a board member should be exempt from the same policies that I'm essentially approved by sitting on this seat for virtually every staff member at our district. If professional development, regular professional development, is something that I'm going to, as a board member, support for our staff, from everyone from the custodian staff up through our highest paid administrators, I don't see why I should be any different, and I'm quite happy to participate.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Aye.
Ms. Cavill?
Aye.
Mrs. Klinkowitz?
Aye.
Mr. Kramer?
No.
Mr. Young?
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum?
Aye.
Mr. Lefebvre?
Aye. All right, that will bring us to new business. First item is 2020 tax levy introduction. Dr. Small, did you want to make any comments here?
I would like to draw your attention to the calendar, which is on page 4 of this particular document that is attached. At the October 1 Budget and Finance meeting, we begin looking at the levy information. It is in its entirety. This is different from our budget process, which comes through across 6 months at a series of pieces coming together in the whole. The levy starts as a whole. So these conversations that occur at the October 1 Budget and Finance meeting, the October 15th board meeting, and then the November 5th tentative Budget and Finance meeting, if we need it, are vital for the board members to be engaged with in our preparation for the November 12th determination of the proposed levy.
All right, thank you. Next, that will bring us to life, accidental death, and dismemberment, and long-term disability insurance renewal. We have a suggested motion that the Board of Education approve a 2-year contract with The Standard, effective January 1, 2021, for life insurance at a rate of 11 cents per $1,000 of coverage for active members and 99 cents per $1,000 of coverage for retirees, and accidental death and dismemberment insurance at a rate of 1.8 cents per $1,000 of coverage, and further, that the Board of Education approve a one-year contract with The Standard effective January 1, 2022 for long-term disability insurance at a rate of 6.5 cents per $1,000 of coverage as presented. Can someone please move that?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Were there any other bids?
There was an assessment of seven different vendors.
Pardon me?
There was an assessment of 7 vendors' proposals.
Yeah, this is the least expensive.
This is the least expensive, yes.
Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Klimkowitz?
Aye.
Mr. Young?
Aye.
Mr. Kramer?
Aye.
Ms. Cavill?
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum?
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Aye.
Mr. LaFever?
Aye. Next, we have student photography vendor recommendation. We have a suggested motion that the Board of Education approves the recommendation to renew the contract with Visual Imaging Photography for student photography services for the 2020-2021 school year. Can someone please move that?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call, please.
Mr. Kramer?
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum?
Aye.
Mr. Young?
Aye.
Ms. Cavill?
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz?
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Aye.
Mr. LaFever?
Aye. Next, we have potential topics for future discussion. Anyone? Okay, that will bring us to committee reports. First, we have Northwest Suburban Special Education Organization.
Okay.
Ms. Klimkowitz.
Very briefly, we had our meeting in September and we recognized our shining star. It is a young man who's in the middle school at District 25, South Middle School, and his name is Vincent. He worked with one of the libraries, and he was able to make 100 face shields that are now part of the PPE equipment for NSSEO, which is truly important because that's part of the equipment that they need, especially with a lot of the students that they have to work with in close contact. We were given an overview of the new tenured teachers. There's a good number of teachers. There were a number of teachers that were retiring. They're still looking to fill some openings that are coming up. They talked about safety and the supplies and things of that nature, and the cleaning and things that were involved in keeping the schools clean and starting to get students back in. Dr. Hackett also presented us with the NSSEO, the Continuous Improvement Plan, the 2021 overview, and I'll be able to give you some more highlights from that if you'd like a little bit later. And the plan for re-engaging, they're working on that, starting to get some students back into the schools because they understand the importance of the special needs students need to get back into the schools as soon as they can. So they're starting to transition them in. So that is NSSEO.
Thank you. Then next we have EdRed and Mrs. Klimkowitz again.
There was no meeting.
No meeting, okay. And then Mrs. Klimkowitz, I believe you have an
But if I may,
IASB.
yeah, the IASB, the Resolutions Committee did have a meeting in August. It was, part of it was in person and part of it was virtual. And they're going to have, the Delegates Assembly is going to take place virtually on Saturday, November 14th at 10 a.m. Mr. Rosenblum is our delegate for that. I sent him the information that I had received. There will be a webinar scheduled for Monday, September 28th at 5 p.m. to explain the virtual delegate assembly process and things of that nature. There will also be something in October 21st, and then November 5th, allowing for virtual discussions about the resolutions. So we should be receiving that as a school district shortly with the information about the Resolutions Committee. So we need to watch for that.
Thank you for that also. Okay, that will bring us to the Facilities Committee. We have Mr. Young and Mr. Dombrowski. Mr. Dombrowski, would you like to have anything to say here?
We met at Friend. We walked through the locker room renovations. We saw some potential projects coming up, some things that are still being worked out as far as permitting and things go. So We talked about the Schaumburg sign that's still being worked on and located. We talked about Conant's parking lot being a future project. We discussed Palatine's kitchen updates and their culinary arts center. I should say the culinary arts facility updates. And so right now we're just looking at potential projects moving forward, I think, as things wrap up here with what we had in the summer, like the field at Conant and some of those other items.
Yeah, there was the one thing with the Frem locker room, we finally getting the glaze blocking for that, and that project should anticipate being completed by Thanksgiving.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have our announcements, just the upcoming calendar items.
I have a couple comments on that. First of all, I'd like to add that in the works right now is the scheduling and finalization for an agenda for a parent boosters president meeting that we try to do near the beginning of each school year, so that I, as the liaison to the boosters, can meet with the various presidents to talk about best practices and scheduling and things like that. So that is in the works and should be coming out to the booster presidents shortly. And I have a question, if you can clarify, maybe expand a little bit on how college night is going to work.
So on here we have 3 different opportunities for our students to engage and explore in what they can do for their post-high school choices. The first generation college night is exactly what it is. We are continue to grow each year with that and encourage our parents and our students to explore what college is all about and understand the options behind it, as well as opportunities in resources for financial aid or any other tricks of the trade, so to speak, that they might not know about how to navigate college and the process along the way. The Directions College and Career Night is for our students with IEPs, and it is geared toward making sure that they have opportunities available for them and understanding the opportunities that are available across colleges across our nation for them. Those are certainly very specific college nights and very targeted college nights. Our final college night, which is on here, which is October 23rd, is our District 211 college night, which if you have ever attended it, it is quite a packed event in terms of the number of people that attend there, and our college and career counselors, as well as our student services directors and others that are involved, are creatively coming up with ways to make sure that some of these sessions are available, as well as some other opportunities. And I'm going to ask Mr. Kovac to give us some more details behind that.
There will definitely be a virtual event. There's a planned series of presentations and sessions for parents and students to engage in that will center on the most common destinations that our students go to after they're done with high school. So such as community college with a representative from Harper College representing that information. We also have the what I'll call the typical four-year institution range, and we have highly selective schools as some examples of the types of environments where there will be representatives from institutions there to present information to the audience to help them understand. It's not going to be the same opportunity to meet with a representative from a specific school and ask those targeted questions about the single destination. Those resources will be made available to our students and our parents, but it will not be that type of event.
And how do we handle the career portion of that?
This is college night specifically. This is not college and career night.
So the career fair typically happens in the February world.
Okay, because it was listed here as college and career night. So for the second line, I was just curious if that was going to...
That's the September 30th is the Directions College and Career Night.
Yeah.
Mr. Kovac was referencing the October 23rd event.
Okay, I'm sorry. I misunderstood. Because you started with the first generation, and I thought you were following up with the second portion of it. Okay, I understand.
But we do have a career fair that will have to creatively become virtual that we have done now at our schools in the February.
Good, thank you.
So as in the past, there are some select schools that have decided to come to our schools to meet with students, right? You know, they have an information session,
Like
so to
during the
speak.
school year?
Throughout the school year. Have there already been discussions? Are they approaching us wanting to have virtual information sessions, so to speak, where students can be notified that Northern Illinois University is going to be available? You know, here's a link to a meeting, you know, a virtual information session or group meeting with them.
Yeah, to my knowledge, those connections have not occurred at the present time, but I understand what you're describing.
Thank you.
Just my personal experience on that, I'm not, I'd be kind of curious how the high schools would necessarily involve themselves in that, but I can say I'm familiar with many schools that make that connection available on the school website, so any student or family that reaches out for that purpose can make that connection. So it's available. Okay, was that everything, Mr. Rosenblum?
Yes, thank you.
Sure. So that brings us to closed session, and I believe we only have retirement requests, so there's no need to go to closed session. We'll just deal with the motion here. Okay, so our suggested motion is that the Board of Education accepts the retirement requests of Mary Hall, effective May 2022, according to the master contract of the District 211 Teachers Union. Rita Heinz, effective May 2021, according to the master contract of the District 211 Teachers Union. Donna Hendrickson, effective June 2024, consistent with the master contract of the District 211 United Support Staff. Judith Paez, effective May 2021, according to the master contract of the District 211 United Support Staff. Can someone please move that?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Cavill.
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski.
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum.
Aye.
Mr. Kramer.
Aye.
Mr. Lefevre.
Aye. And if there's nothing further, yes.
I just wanted to clarify a couple things real quick on the board training, the workshop. One is that it is being considered a special board meeting. My understanding is that board meetings are not mandatory, but as a board member, you are strongly encouraged to attend. And secondly, to clarify to a comment that Mr. Kramer made, this workshop is in open session. It will not be a closed session meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, just a reminder, we have the signing of the budget resolution. This meeting is adjourned.